Hello, BookTube. I realized just a minute ago that it's been a few hours since I did a page 112 tag, so I thought I'd correct that imbalance right away. For those of you who don't know, that is a thing that originates from a literary prize in France, where the judges were given only page 112 of prospective long list books, under the assumption that the first few chapters of a book are so carefully vetted and brushed and cleaned and tidied that you didn't really get a sense of what the writer's like when they're at full gallop, so to speak. And that the way to get a sense of the book in the part of it that maybe isn't supposed to be seen by potential literary judges is to jump ahead to page 112 just at random and judge the book on that. And in the original context, the judges then use that page to determine whether or not they want to see more of the book. And booktuber I really like, Sean the Book Maniac. I'll try to remember to leave a link to his channel down below. If you haven't subscribed to him, you should. He came up with the inspired idea of doing that with books, just ourselves instead of just as literary prizes. Where the rough parameters so far are that you take 3 books that you haven't read. Although even that can be fudged. I intend to do this with 3 books that I have read, just to see what an isolated page is like altogether. That's an interesting experiment on its own. But for now, take 3 books that you haven't read, jump to page 112, read page 112 out loud without identifying the book to your viewers, and then see which one is the most successful. And it's been fascinating to watch Sean do it, and a couple of other booktubers have done it, where sometimes the winner, so to speak, for the viewers is different from the one that jumps out to the person actually doing the reading. I think that's fascinating. So we're gonna do this, and this is a nonfiction version. I sometimes do nonfiction version because I don't really like the made-up stories. So here's the first one. Because the garden door was open, so we just ran right round, didn't we, Joe? It's raining cats and dogs. And the bleeding car broke down, just at the end of the road. That's all I need. Joe threw off his wet jacket and sat on the steps to take off his boots. You look terrible, Peter. Jessie untied her headscarf and shook it over the sink. Didn't you get any sleep? A little bit, I said, and I lit the gas under the kettle. I'll make you a cup of tea. Well, how is Gloria? She's been rambling and talking to herself. What was she saying? I don't know, Jessie. I wasn't here. What do you mean you weren't here? Joe's eyes narrowed on me. Where were you then? I needed to get away. I went to Eileen Connolly at the Belgrave. Do you mean to say that you spent the night at a casino? He was now totally fixed on me, and I could feel the fury brewing. No, Joe, not exactly. Well, where did you spend it then? I wanted to talk. I had to talk to Eileen. We went to a club in Chinatown. Do you mean to tell me that you left Gloria upstairs in this house with no one except the old girl to look after her while you went out drinking and spending the night on a pub crawl? Joe's body contorted into a state of absolute rage. I've heard of some terrible things, but that's the worst. You don't care about anybody except yourself. That's it with you. I don't want anything more to do with you. So that's page 112 of that. We're dunked deep into an emotional scene, and an emotional scene that seems to blow up out of nowhere, and that has the I don't know if you noticed, but the rather unfortunate, it seems accidental, echoing of brewing a kettle of tea and an emotional storm brewing. When that kind of echo happens in a few lines of each other, and seems unintentional, it of course undercuts what's going on. It distracts you. You immediately think, oh, 2 things are brewing? That sort of thing. But anyway, we'll move on. We'll move on to the next one. Let's see here. We did a lot of writing in 10th grade, Mastriano recalled in 2015. A lot of free writes, a lot of writer notebooks, just getting the words out, the good words and the bad words too. The writing work meant much to Griffin in terms of assessing his early experiences in Far Rock, just as it helped him examine his own life. So much so that in 2015 he would look back and describe Mastriano as his, quote, muse, which in turn brought a laugh from his former teacher for being labeled a demigoddess. A muse, one of the 9 sister goddesses of inspiration, right? She told a radio interviewer, yeah, He wasn't even calling me a muse when he was in high school, but we had a good relationship. He always seemed to be gone from class, taken away by long weekends playing on one elite team or another, but he always returned to school with his assignments done, which earned Mastriano's hard-won respect. He was remarkably disciplined in high school, she recalled. The discipline was his mother's work, family friends said. She insisted on it as part of her effort to control her son's rapidly changing environment. Even though his focus was on his schoolwork didn't approach the mental effort he directed towards his sport, Mastriano also sensed his sizable hunger for gaining all sorts of knowledge. He sees learning as empowering. He listens very intently, she offered in 2014. Can you imagine what the world would look like if everybody lived that way? Okay, so it's someone recalling someone else, and it's engaging. It's very, very engagingly done. And then the last one, and then we'll talk a bit. Okay, so where are we here? The spiritual life of Bratslav is suffused with an awareness of God's transcendence, that is, one's distance from God. This theology contrasts sharply with the tradition of the Besht, according to which God is immanent, present everywhere. In contrast to the Baal Shem Tov, Naaman experienced and modeled for his followers the painful struggle to attain the divine presence. At the same time, he recognized the paradox that the transcendent God is to be found everywhere, but his immanence remains out of reach. Terms such as meniot, obstacles on the spiritual path, or gau gaim, longings for an absent God, seldom mentioned elsewhere in Hasidism, are key to Bratslav vocabulary. Naaman understands the seeming absence of God as a consequence of divine contraction and the breaking of vessels of Isaac Luria's Kabbalistic system. But it is also a result of man's sinfulness, and especially the pollution of the human imagination by wicked, often sexual thoughts. The process of overcoming this gulf between man and God is a constant struggle against one's own limitations. Okay, all right, so abstruse material, but you have to admit, that was forcefully and clearly done. By the end of that paragraph, by the end of that page, this whole paragraph, you know a lot more than you did when it started. And you get the feeling, too, that you are in the middle of a learned but somehow accessible conversation. So I'm going to show you the books. For me, I don't think this is going to win, but for me, the second one was the clear winner. It was the one that seemed to glow with the most storytelling, with the most concentration on the importance of storytelling. The first one, that didn't really do it for me. A kind of an emotional dust-up that happens out of nowhere as a character realizes that another character whom he entrusted with the care of someone who's obviously losing her faculties left that care to a secondary caretaker and went out on the town. I have seen stories, moments like that in countless books, and plainly put, I've seen it done more effectively. But the first one is Film Stars Don't Die in Liverpool. By Peter Turner, and that is a movie cover. Those are two movie stars on the cover because it was made into a movie, and it is its subtitle is A True Love Story. On September 29th, 1981, Peter Turner receives a phone call that would change his life. His former lover, Hollywood actress Gloria Graham, had collapsed in a Lancaster hotel and was refusing medical attention. He took her into his chaotic and often eccentric family's home in Liverpool to see her through her last days. Though their affair had ended years before, it was to him as if she turned in her final hour of need. I haven't read this. It came out a while ago, and I never got to it. And the book description makes it sound more interesting than the excerpt that we read. So in a case like this, with the page 112 tag, I am willing to believe that we caught the book on a bad page, and that the story probably cumulatively is more interesting. Then the second book, the one that his narrative line really did it for me, is I intentionally left out the person's name, and I also left out the name of his sport so that you wouldn't guess it right away. It's by Roland Lazenby, and it's Showboat, a biography of Kobe Bryant, now in paperback. And when I was finding page 112 to do this tag, I read a few other pages too, and Lazenby can really tell the story. Like I've found is true with a great number of sports writers. they really do know their craft. They really do. I, of course, have no interest in sports. I don't watch sports. I don't keep up on a lot of sports. But I never miss sports writing books because they're such thrilling writing experiences, which is, it's odd. It has the odd effect of meaning that I have if you were to somehow assemble my legacy of reviews, if you were to assemble all the book reviews that I've written in the last 10 years, you would see a sizable number of them on sports writing, even though it's not my cup of tea at all. I'm happy to do it at all times. It takes a lot of research on my part, but that's this one, Showboat. And then the third one, the one that talks about the immanence and transcendence of God and various schools of Kabbalistic interpretation, is this enormous Megillah of a book. It is a new history of Hasidism. Just gigantic. And I really liked it. I realize I'm the minority here. I'm kind of an oddity on this channel, but that's all right. When I see something like that prose was scholarly but very engaged. It wanted to it first of all contained no dross at all, no flab, no academic doubling of terms of phrases, no murky ideology. It was clear and fast and strong. It wanted to keep you interested. And that was on random page 112 in the middle of a theological discussion. So I have a feeling that over its enormous course, I'm going to read this weekend, I have a feeling that it will be very good. Probably more abstruse. I know almost nothing about Hasidism, despite having many, many close friends among the chosen people. And I know nothing at all about Kobe Bryant. The most I know about him is the sexual scandal that he was part of. And even there, I only remember the barest details. So I don't know anything about his basketball career. So these two represent equally alien territory for me, and they're almost equally inviting. This one, I am going. I mean, it's nothing. It's a pamphlet, so I can do it in half an hour. But it's the one I'm least interested in reading, based on those excerpts. So, and since this is a page 112 tag, I want to hear from the rest of you. Which ones did you like? If I had Sean the Bookmaniac's technical wizardry, I would have put the text up on the screen so that you could read it along with me. But I don't. So, anyway, I'd love to hear what you have to say, and the next time I do the page 112 tag, I'm going to do it with works I know really well. So when I do that, since I won't be breaking new ground with the works, you should probably batten down the hatches for a little more in the way of bloated commentary. But that'll be then. I'll stop for now. Thank you, BookTube.